What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. All right, Mr. Beast, got his green drink going. What's the special ingredient in there this time?
I think it's too much of that Indian gooseberry. What's that called again?
Amla powder.
Amla powder. Yeah, it's pretty amla forward this morning.
Dude, the amla takes over. So for those of you who don't know, amla is supposed to be, I believe, to date, it's the most antioxidant compound naturally occurring on Earth, which is the Indian gooseberry, and then they sell it in supplement form, which is called amla powder, AMLA.
Yeah, so I've got some amla powder, chia seeds, hemp seeds, turmeric, ginger, like a quarter of banana, half a lemon, and then lettuce, kale, and the kind of leafy stuff. I just grab the leafy stuff around the cauliflower and around the broccoli. I like, because that stuff you don't really cook typically. So
right,
but it's full of good nutrients, I'm sure. So it goes in there.
Hell yeah, yeah, man. How was the weekend, buddy?
It was good. I missed a workout, but I forgot that I had scheduled one for Saturday. But I think I did 5 or 6 days in a row working out, and it's just the mental health benefits are unparalleled. You know, I was talking with our friend Brent, and he was reminding me that like 3 days a week is a minimum, but if you do it 5 or 6 or 7, you really get that mental clarity. That's his experience anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm loving that. Went to church with my wife, with my daughter and my mom. Awesome. Brought my daughter to see my dad. Awesome. So like a good holistic weekend.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, number one, how's Brent doing? And just so everybody knows,
He's good.
Okay, cool.
He's good. He's on the mend. He is he's living clean and serene, and I'm super pumped for him.
Hell yeah.
I love to see it.
Well, tell him if he ever wants to come back on board. You know, obviously he knows he's more than welcome. But I also think that working out is there's many different definitions of it. And I do think that working out and going to the gym tends to be put in people's minds of like, oh, I've got to go do this hardcore thing, versus what is more like ancestrally congruent, which is staying moving the majority of the time with random spikes of intensity, if that makes sense. So you could go to the gym 7 days a week, does not mean you have to crush out 2 hours where you're redlining every single time. I mean, I would actually argue they should, in my opinion, should probably rarely redline unless absolutely needed.
100%.
So,
I mean, I only had time for about 25 minutes this morning, but I know that I don't, I missed yesterday, I missed Saturday, and hell, I missed Friday, I think, or maybe, no, and so just to get, and I've got a workout schedule for tomorrow, but I just wanted to get some movement in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And Gunther's saying, agreeing with us. And I think you'll find the more seasoned gym vets will know that as well, versus like what we used to read in the magazines in the early, 90s, 2000s. It was like, oh my gosh, you got to be like Ronnie Coleman and like pop your bicep every single time.
Right.
And that's just not the reality. And I've noticed even from being on bodybuilding team, even those guys, even when they're massively hopped up on gear, they're going for 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And that's only 5 days a week. So oftentimes people getting into it, they tend to have a very much dramatic view of what it means to be working out, when the reality is like, go 60 to 80% of your max 80 to 90% of the time, and you'll be in phenomenal shape.
Yeah, I just want to move every day. That's my goal. And so if if I end up helping a buddy move out of his apartment, that's a workout. I count that as a workout. You know, I might even turn on the fitness app for that.
Yeah.
You know, if I go for a super long walk, that's my workout for the day. And if I hit the gym, you know, that's the workout. It's only when with my trainer really that I've got the headband and like the veins bulging, you know, and like the shouting to screaming to finish the you know, the rep. That's like, that's twice a week.
I also think there is a tendency for a trainer to have to try to produce a certain visceral real-time result versus like, I wish more people would say, hey, look, just so you know, the journey you're about to go down, if you really want the results, you're going to have to sign up for 400 sessions. Mm-hmm. And almost nobody would sign up, you know, but that's probably more likely the route that most people should take. Like almost in finance, what I want to tell people is like, look, if you're not going to do this for 5 years, don't even start. And in fact, I tell the majority of our clients that if you're not going to do this for at least a half a decade with us, then you should probably go somewhere else. And if you have that level set in the beginning, I also think in the fitness world, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, we should probably have a discussion of it didn't take you 3 nights to get overweight. It's going to take you 300 nights to get back to, right, like your fighting shape. So let's not redline on any particular night.
Yeah, and I look forward to the time when I can just train myself, but I've committed personally to a year of personal trainer sessions. Like it's a 3-month rotating kind of schedule, but Sarah wants out after 3 months. And she's already talking about like, you know, I'm not sure we can afford this right now, but I'm going to make it work because it's on my vision board.
Yep.
You know, having a banging bod, being super healthy, super fit. And that's something I want for the rest of my life. And it pays dividends in all other areas of my life. Self-esteem, you know, ability to wake up early in the morning and stay up, you know, till bedtime, not requiring naps. Mental health, self-image. I mean, like, and then just get up and go. It just pays dividends on everything. So I think it's top of my priority list, to be honest.
Well, and I think, and nothing against Sarah, I'm just calling out the pattern here. I often think that when people say I can't afford something, it's like, wait a second, before we go and we say that, let's dissect all of our financials, or let's do a reconciliation on our time. And let's see where we're spending probably way more money on something dramatically less important. And how about we consider cutting that? Because this over here is going to give us a lot more benefit.
Yeah, and the nice thing is like Uber Eats and Uber Rides could be up to like 25 to 50% of our income being spent on that, right? Because it's undisciplined, it's like last minute, like, you know, whereas that kind of stuff really gobbles up your income, that undisciplined spending, right? But at least this is scheduled and paid, like, you know what I mean? You know what it's costing going into it.
Oh yeah. Do you have a grocery store around within walking distance of your house by any chance?
Yeah, I have a cheap grocery store, dirt cheap grocery store, about a 10-minute walk. I go in there about once a year. And then I've got the nicest grocery store, personally, I think, on the planet. I just go in there and it's my happy place, you know? Like everyone's like, hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Ooh, samples. Okay. You know? And it's like there's nice music playing, and like they arrange the veggies and fruits. So everywhere you look, it's like a kind of like a Thanksgiving table centerpiece kind of, you know? So yeah. And that's definitely whatever negative term you want to use in terms of spending, you know, like excessive, undisciplined, you know. I know, but you're right, because we talk about like, is it worth it to me? You know, like just because there's a cheaper option.
Yeah. Well, so if I think about it like this, so I joined a new fighting gym this weekend, and I see that Dima's on. So Dima, I meant to call you this weekend. Dima, if you want to come and join me in this fighting gym, it's outstanding. It's literally just a quick little timeout on this. So I showed up, and I've been looking for a better one because I'm going to this jiu-jitsu gym, and it's definitely more formal jiu-jitsu gym. And it's like, you're not going to start really rolling and fighting until you're 8 months in. Like, and maybe you can expedite that, to 5 months. So then I was like, I don't know if I really like this. And it wasn't a full MMA gym. So then I joined this other gym this week and I want to test it out. And the instructor and these guys show up, and the one guy is this old school. I was like, hey, what's your name? He's like, Coach Mills. And he was not a coach at the place. Like, his just identity is coach because he's a wrestling coach somewhere else, right? Yeah.
The football coach, like 30 years after retiring, is still 100%. Coach Mills. Right.
Exactly. So he looks at me, like, doesn't break eye contact. He's like, this is a real fight club. And I was like, all right, and not paying any attention to it. And then the instructor shows up, and I kind of knew him from the past, and he's got dried blood on his face, and and I was like, what's that from? He's like, dude, and this guy fought not Nate Diaz. He fought Nick Diaz, which if you know anything about the UFC, like, Nick and Nate Diaz.
Nick's the pussy, right? And Nate is the killer. Isn't that what they say?
I have no idea. From my understanding, they're both freaking killers.
Yes. Yeah, obviously they're both killers. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's the guy who owns this gym. And he's like, dude, last night it was amazing. I was like, what happened? He's like, we just went old school. We turned off the lights to the gym. We pulled up my car. We put the headlights inside. And he's like,
music video.
Dude. Yeah. And he's like, I got everybody in a circle. And he's like, I told them to pretend that somebody just broke in their house, was trying to beat up their wife. And then I picked 2 guys out, and it's like, you guys go right now. And then he's like, eventually it's my turn. He's like, that's where the dried blood comes from. Yeah. So it was like totally legit. God. So Dima, if you want in, man,
no, Dima, don't, Dima, don't. Dude, this is not safe.
No. So the cool thing is, like,
what's the point?
Yeah. So the point that I was actually trying to make was I rode my bike to and from the gym. So I'm trying to now incorporate my own fuel in the commuting to and from. So I would say if you're spending money on Uber Eats or whatever it is right now, why not consider maybe once or twice a week walking to that grocery store? Yeah, maybe you pay a premium price, but it's probably higher quality groceries. Walking to and from with a backpack, like you're going and hunting for your food. I'm going to imagine you burn it couple hundred extra calories, you spend time doing it, you could do it with your family, and all of a sudden that transaction is much more profitable for you in many different ways.
100%. And in the week running up, or maybe 2 weeks or months, let's be honest, running up to my exhibition opening, like, we were just doing Uber Eats every day. And I've talked to my assistant, and it's like, she's on board with just getting that kale salad kind of like pre-cut bag that we always talk about on this group, and just like splitting that, maybe a chicken breast on top. And I can get that at the El Cheapo tragedy store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can walk there.
And that's where I think it's, I would never want to force it. First of all, I think when you're at a certain level, it requires hustle, massive sacrifice, et cetera. So if you're a man listening to this conversation and you're at that level, and I was at that level for years, like slept on the floor for years, worked for free for years, blah, 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 all this stuff. If you're at that level, that's a different thing. It's like, yeah, you go to the dollar store to get your groceries. But if you're outside of that level, well, now it's a transaction of, I would still vote, Ray, for you to have and your wife to have and your kid to have a level 10 life. But it's like, where are the incongruencies? So once you set that vision board, well, I would probably imagine that Uber Eats is probably, I'm guessing. I'm also guessing you're not ordering Uber Eats and it's delivering fresh cut raw vegetables.
No, it's 50-50. I mean, it's okay. I am ordering from a place called Impact Kitchen, which is super healthy. And it's like a kale salad with chicken on top. So really the issue is it's $50 for 2 salads with chicken on top, basically, right? Because it's the restaurant cost plus the delivery fee, right? Yeah. So it's about $50. And so it really is the cost and the undisciplined, like, only when my assistant is here and we're hungry, then we open the app, right? So it's amazing food, and I enjoy it and I deserve it and all that. But I would, just in terms of like being a leader and organizing my business and organizing my household correctly, and like, a friend of mine, like Sarah's cousin, we were at the tennis club sitting by the pool, and he asked me, how much does it cost a month? And I couldn't answer the question, right? Because I hadn't done the I don't have the Excel spreadsheet, right? Mm-hmm. So from that point of view alone, I want to know, like, in terms of budgeting, how much I'm going to spend in a week. I can make a line item for Uber Eats, or I can spend I can quarter that amount by just getting the food in advance.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And I do think it requires judgment. If legitimately, so
100%, Gunther, 100%.
Could still be okay, but yeah, totally agree. Now here's the thing. I do think real-time opportunity cost should be acknowledged. So
of course.
If your business produces revenue such that the hour that you're going to spend putting it together or putting your meal together is dramatically more of a cost than ordering from Uber Eats. So only you can have that judgment. I can tell you that for me, 9 times out of 10, I am ordering. I'm going somewhere. I've actually never ordered Uber Eats, but I'm lucky because I've got a Whole Foods like literally 1 minute drive from my house. So I think that helps a lot. But I do think it requires judgment. Like, what's the real-time opportunity cost? Because I do think some people do that opportunity cost calculation and say, oh, my time is worth $100 an hour. It's like, but not on Saturday. Mm-hmm. For most people, it's like the opportunity cost was you're just going to lay around watching TV. So the Uber Eats allowed you to lay around and watch TV a little longer. Why not just get your butt up and go and use the calories? You get a little extra fitness in, plus you get better food, plus it doesn't cost as much. So I do think it requires a little bit more judgment than most people give it. Right.
I'm not about to cancel a client meeting because I need to walk to the store and get the salad, right?
Oh yeah. Or sales calls, even more importantly. I think those are the tricky. Those are the tricky tasks.
That's what I said is obvious, right? But
exactly.
And what you said is like, what I said is playing not to lose, and what you said is playing to win.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think during business hours, when you set your clock, that's game time. Like, you don't see LeBron James going off and doing his taxes, mid game, right? It's like, it's you've got. And I also don't think it should be 8 hours. I think it should be several focused hours, maybe in 2-hour increments, 2 or 3 times a day for business owners. Hardcore focus. I'm not doing anything else. I don't even let staff ask me any questions during certain times. It's just, I need to stay focused on the top projects.
We know you put your hands in cement gloves so they can't hand you pieces of paper, right?
That's exactly right.
We know. Totally normal, totally sane.
So switching topics, man, what do you think about this book that Mr. Kaizen recommended? And Kaizen, we might need your coaching on this, man.
Yeah, man, I'd love it. I'd love it to bring him up to a second chair. It's Levels of Energy by Frederick Dodson. Kaizen's been recommending this for ages, like maybe 6 months now. And so I couldn't find a PDF version, right? So I'm doing the audiobook. And when... So I listened to a 3-5 minute sample, and minute one, I was like, this is flaky, magical thinking nonsense. By minute 5, I'm like, I'm obsessed. And I can't wait to read the rest of this book, hear the rest of this book.
Yeah. So thank you for sending this on the Discord. I got that.
There's that, and that is adapted. So what I did after that is I went and I pressed pause and play, pause, play, and I got the literal scale that he talks about, right? Which is more categories, more in depth. What's up, Kaizen? How did you come across this book to begin with, bro?
Hey, dudes. Sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to Rhomas team.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
So I listened to a lot of motivational speakers, and I kept hearing this one mentioned from Owen Cook. It was one of those ones where, for whatever reason, he was like listing off books that he's read, and he was talking about some of the subject matter, and I just paused, wrote it down, went and looked it up, and then got into it. I had a couple credits on Audible, so I just went and got it and checked it out. And it's exactly like you said. Like, you start it, and then all of a sudden, to me, it's like there's been a couple books like this where you listen to, and it changes your perspective or changes like your awareness of things. Where it felt like if you've ever played like a real-time strategy video game where there's like a part of the map that's got like fog or something on it and you can't see it, but then you start moving around and all of a sudden, oh, this is there, this is there, this is there. It's like that, like going through that book, it makes you think about things in a way that it's like, oh, this has been here the whole time and I was just not aware of it.
Right. And Owen Cook, Kaizen, correct me if I'm wrong, is he Tyler Durden from the book, The Game?
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So Kaizen, I might need a little of your coaching here, and Ray, a little of your coaching as well. So this is definitely harder for my robot brain to comprehend like this kind of stuff. So I do notice myself like, glitching a little bit when I read it. So I'm definitely going to need both of your guidance here. So if you can walk me through. So I'm done, I think, all of chapter 1, maybe. I'm probably like halfway into chapter 2. So if you can give me a summary of if I didn't read the first chapter, what would that look like? Like, what's the main concept of that first chapter?
Well, the main concept is levels of energy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little excerpt on his website, just like a kind of teaser. Levels of energy. Infinity is everything. Therefore, it is my only point of reference. My relationship with it is immersed in everything I am and in everything in everyday life and in everything I do in everyday life. Infinity is absolute. It is the only thing not subject to relativity. There is no worldly authority on infinity. I am answerable and accountable only to the Most High, the supreme creator of the universe. Call him God, call him the universe, call him whatever you want, is both the source of infinity and everything within it. This is not an attitude learned in books or from teachers, but rather one cultivated through meditation, contemplation, and unbending, eternally focused dedication and devotion to the highest truth, no matter whether that highest truth agrees with my or any other opinion or not. So this is where I'm like, I don't know about this magical thinking, right? I was listening to and I've been getting YouTube videos of him to get context. And he's like, you might have heard of The Secret, right? And people who have a problem with The Secret have a problem with this kind of thinking. I want to, like this kind of law of attraction. I want to buy a winning lottery ticket and I want it to win tomorrow, right? Which you could even say, I want a date with Scarlett Johansson tonight and I want it to start with a long kiss. Or you could say, I want aliens to abduct me today and go on a 3-week kind of like cruise of the universe, understanding where all the cool planets are. So that kind of magical thinking is problematic for a lot of people. And for me, particularly having done this group for 2 years now, because there's no action, there's no habit and action, right? What clicked for me was he said, if something bad is going on, let's say you get an fender bender or you're fighting with your neighbor or you're fighting with your wife or you're having trouble selling your merch, think of your problem compared to infinity. Again, this word infinity, right, is key for him. And then he says something like, think of your problem as a wave and infinity as the ocean. And when you compare the wave to the ocean, bada bing, bada boom, your problem doesn't seem so big anymore.
Got it. Okay, Kaizen, what is your response to that? Because I'm trying to still wrap my head around a lot of this stuff. So Ray, thank you for that. I definitely like the visual of wave relative to the ocean.
It really snapped into place for me when he said that.
Yeah, I just I had this picture. I've had it on my desktop from when I was first checking this book out, but it's got all the different levels where they break it down into just further from different levels of consciousness, dimensions, vibration, color, self-identification, and all of that. It's kind of like because he touches on this a lot in the book, where you're not going to go from like level 20 shame to level 700 awareness. You're not going to go from like one to the other. You have to go from like in order. So a lot of the times, like he talks about it in the book, like to get somebody that's in a fear, like a level 100, up to actually like doing something about it, you have to first get them up to like anger level 150. So you have to like make progress in going from these different levels. And it's also a way to kind of like realize you have different motivators. So sometimes like, and this is where I was getting a lot of the recommendations for this book, was the talks that I was listening to that would say for like what he was calling endless motivation. You have some things that will motivate you. Sometimes you want to motivate yourself to like help other people or be altruistic or do something for like the greater good. Sometimes you want to be good for like selfish reasons. Maybe it's for like your ego, to stroke your ego, to make yourself feel like you're better than other people. Sometimes you're trying to do something and the motivation is like you want to prove somebody that you feel like wronged you or something like, and those are all different levels that you can fall into. And that's where you're going to get like these different versions of yourself or different versions of motivation. And going back to like that quote you said a while back, where it's like, you don't rise to the level of the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. Mm-hmm. So where you find yourself a lot in these levels is more than likely where you're going to like, if something like if an instance happens to you, you get cut off in traffic or you're in a fender bin or something, it might affect you in a way that for like sometimes people will spiral and they'll go down these levels. But for the most part, after a while, they'll kind of like go back to wherever they're at. Like, and the same thing can happen the opposite direction, right? So for some people, maybe they did win a prize or something like that and it boosted them up a little bit and they felt pretty good. But then for whatever reason, they find ways to get themselves back into like that lower level state of being. And this is kind of like opening up your awareness to things that might be affecting that. So it's either like pulling you up and increasing your energy or whatever they call it, like vibration, if you want to get the woo-woo stuff. But I think of it as like a battery for like your phone or your computer, your car or whatever. What's going to like supercharge it and what's going to like drain it. Like if you have a bunch of apps running on your phone, that's going to drain your battery. Versus if you have certain things, it's going to like improve the battery. So for you, it's like, what things am I doing that like make me feel energized, like helping other people or doing the scorecard, like being able to check off the things on the scorecard. That's obviously, you feel better about yourself and that kind of like motivates you to keep, all right, I got this done, this done, this done. So it's building momentum in that way. And that's how you build momentum to go up in the level. And the same thing can happen if you like say you're going to do something and then you don't do it. And then all of a sudden you get in that excuse making momentum and you start like feeling bad about, oh, I said I was going to do this and I didn't do that. Now I feel bad about it. Now you start going down the levels. So it's being aware of this kind of stuff. I think it makes it easier to kind of like take a step back and pause and kind of think about things that are happening. So you can say, okay, is this elevating? Is this affecting me negatively? What actions can I take that will ultimately like raise my level? Am I doing something that's hurting other people? Am I doing something that's hurting myself? And it's just kind of like, okay, there's all this stuff that's going on. And sometimes if you're not aware of it, you can just be like a plastic bag in the wind and you're just getting tossed around everywhere and everything is manipulating you. Versus when you're actually aware of these kind of things, it's kind of like being like that tree or something in the storm that's movable. Things aren't affecting it. You're able to like be the eye of the storm with the chaos going around you. Right.
Now, is it, let's say, so we have this scale and you just put up on the Discord that scale. So thank you. So anybody who wants to check it out, go to Discord and you'll see on our channel the dimensions that Kaizen is referring to. So if we go, let's just say the bottom of the scale, it's kind of like it's a funnel. So the bottom of the scale is the worst dimension, and then you go all the top, it's the best dimension. Is that correct?
Yeah. And Wes, can I found when I was reading the book, because I'm so skeptical. I mean, my default position is being skeptical of magical thinking, right? So but it was very helpful what he said. He's like, the physical universe is made of energy, right? We know that from science, right? Molecules bouncing off each other, things we can't see. But the non-physical universe, that's thoughts, spirituality, is also made up of energy, right? So if you believe in energy with molecules colliding, you can believe in non-physical energy, right, of thoughts. And then within these thoughts, right, we're talking about thoughts and the non-physical energy that makes up the thoughts. There's a scale of high, medium, and low energy. And high is the good feelings that beget good actions. Medium is the medium thoughts that beget medium thoughts. And then low levels of energy are the bad thoughts that beget bad actions.
Yeah, and I can add to that. So, and Kaizen, maybe you could appreciate this, but I can tell you, so we run everything through systems at the office. And I can tell you, if I change one thing, everything else goes exponentially better. And that is my intentions. And for some reason, when I literally have my reminder on my sales script that says, like, remember gratitude, remember that you're here to teach people and to share what you've learned. And when I tap into that, and I don't know how it relates to this, but it feels like it does. When I tap into that, everything changes. It's almost like the scripts don't matter anymore. I mean, the scripts help, but like at that point, it's like I'm bringing a certain, I almost want to say it, like vibration to that conversation. And I did that last week. Sometimes I just forget because it's like from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. But when I did that last week, the person actually commented on it. She's like, this is like crazy. She's like, I've met with a lot of, financial advisors and wealth planners and so on. She's like, this is way different. And there was nothing special that I said, but it was the enthusiasm, it was the intention, it was the energy and the vibration. So is that roughly like what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then being aware of it. So it's like that. I think that is the biggest key point. It's like, so if you work out with a personal trainer or, when I was coaching people, we would videotape them doing certain things so they could see themselves from like that third person perspective. I think that kind of like taking altitude or taking elevation on it, taking a step back, it helps you kind of like think about, okay, how is this being perceived? What is this actually like? What are the actions that I'm actually doing? What is the truth of this? Are my intentions good? Am I putting out like the good intentions? Am I putting out malicious intentions? And being completely like real and honest about it. And for the most part, if you're going to be coming from, all right, my intentions are good, I'm trying to do something to help people, more than likely you're going to get more positive feedback than if you were like trying to basically like put somebody out of business or, do something to negatively influence them. And within whatever momentum that you're building, it's going to go either up or down. It's like, I think Tony Robbins says it is like, you're either spiraling up or you're spiraling down. You're either growing or you're dying. It's like one of the two. You're never stationary no matter what. So it's like being aware of, okay, where am I at right now? What can I do to go up? What can I do to go down? And then just kind of like using that information.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. And I remember back to the corporate world, and there was just, at that level, I think everybody was doing the right things. But I do recall like very few of them were doing it the right way, and probably myself included, because we were miserable, we were sick all the time, we were getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep nonstop, and our bosses were always putting so much pressure on us. But I do recall, oh yeah, I really like John over there because every time he comes over to my desk, like he brings a certain level of energy, and it's that we're all working on the same projects, the same stuff. So it's that X factor. So maybe it's that X factor that I've just struggled and still struggling to articulate. Maybe that's what we're talking about here in this book.
And I think of something that Kaizen said last time, and it's not directly related to this, but it's like, do you remember Wes Kaizen said the cliche, how you do everything is how you do anything, or how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? Yep. And so, and I'm just wondering that maybe like you were so your intentions were in the right place during that client meeting, that there might be something that you don't like, something obvious, like wiping your nose on your sleeve, that's an obvious turnoff to a client. But like, if you snap at, or do you know what I mean? Or maybe if you snap at your assistant, that would be an obvious turnoff. But like, if your intentions are in the right place and you bring that to everything you're doing, then I think that really glows to the client, and they know it's not it's kind of not an act.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think, Ray, like you, I approached this book when I first read it, I was like, oh man, like this is gonna be difficult for me. But now as we talk through it, and as I went through the first book, I had to reread it as well, the first chapter. I think it's starting to hit home a lot more. And to what Kaizen was saying earlier, I do think it's one of those paradigm shifting topics where you're like, oh, okay, this is not just a niche topic. This impacts everything, like everything I do all the time.
And you know what? I'm just going to read out the low levels of energy here, and because like when I think about, when I see my neighbor in his backyard and I start thinking of the mass murder kind of fantasies or whatever, right? Like this is what came to mind, like low levels of energy. Remember, boys, it's a scale of 1 to 1,000. And this is the lowest tier. 190 is pride, superiority, and arrogance. 170 is antagonism, criticism, discontent, complaint, blame. 160 is anger, domination, aggression, coldness. 120 is craving, need, compulsion, and unfulfilled desires. 100 is fear, worry, shyness, inferiority, and paranoia. 80 is grief, sorrow, self-pity. 50 is apathy, despair, depression, hopelessness. 30 is guilt, shame, psychosis, humiliation, hatred. And so when I see my neighbor, or if I'm mad at my wife, or if, someone's driving too slow in front of me, a lot of those words resonate with me, right. Those feelings are pinging in my brain. And so to have to put it into, and so like Kaizen said, we can go from being frustrated when we drive, giving people the finger, like slamming your hands on the wheel if they don't make the turn on the yellow light as quickly as you wanted. Or if we read this book and we think about this kind of process, we can feel those, we can even assign a value or a word to those feelings in our head before we give the finger, before we slam our hands on the wheel or the dashboard. And so for me, that's what I think. Like I was thinking, like when I heard the high levels of like inspiration and, and then the middle levels of like willingness and acceptance. When they got to the low levels, I was like, oh, God damn it. This is how I'm spending half my day. Like I'm basically, and I thought of that cartoon, that Pixar cartoon Inside Out, where there's, the happy person, the four phenomenal characters. Movie. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm just either grumpy or like, you know what I mean? I'm spending way too much time in the grumpy chair. So that's what I got out of this scale.
Yeah, Kaizen, I think this was a huge game changer. Even in this conversation, just being able to see a scale. So if anybody hasn't checked it out, look it out on the Discord. Ray posted a picture of one scale, and then Kaizen just posted another picture of, a more granular, updated scale. So Ray, just what you said, being able to identify, dude, like I was never taught how to identify emotions, like ever. I think it was my mom was so overly emotional. I was like, I want nothing to do with that whole world, But now, so I lack the ability to feel a feeling and then identify it with a feeling. But now, Kaizen, what this book and you have brought into my life is you can now identify the emotion and then rank it. And I'm all about ranking shit. So like that is awesome. So, and then it's like, okay, being able to quickly identify where am I at? And Ray, I'm like you, I'm hanging out in like the red/yellow zone, I don't know, 85% of my day. And that's not good.
Word. And I also think of something we've talked about on this pod before, which is not reacting, but responding, right? If there's a negative stimulus, to stop and analyze it first before you go into like Bruce Lee mode, right?
Yep.
And so,
exactly.
right. And so this is that middle ingredient where something happens, you stop, you rank it, and then you respond accordingly rather than the lizard brain or the caveman reaction or the fight or flight.
Well, let me ask you this, guys, and Ray. So let's say the goal, I assume the goal is to hang out at the top of the pyramid or the top of the funnel as most as possible. That's my assumption. Well, I also assume that if you're at that top of the funnel, that it's easier to hang out there when you're also meeting with another person or people at the top of the funnel. That is what I imagine is probably optimal. What happens for you, Kaizen, because you've been practicing this longer, when you're at the top of the funnel and then you interact with either a stimulus, either be a human or some sort of situation that is lower in the funnel? Do you absorb that? Do you push it away? Like, how does that happen?
They actually talk about that later in the later chapters. I think it's once it's like 300-400. Once you get around there, they start talking about it. I think in between, when you're a little bit closer to it, you start reacting to it, and sometimes it could pull you down. Sometimes you might try to maybe negotiate with these people to try to have them see your way, and then at a certain point, you just don't react to it at all. And you don't feed any kind of energy into it, and then you just act like that low level behavior or whatever didn't even occur. I think so. What that kind of made me think of is I'm not sure if they touch on it in the book, but it's something that I've heard before, and I feel like is really valuable. When you start, and I had to catch myself because once you start going through this book, you start looking at other people and other instances, and you start judging. And it's really easy to get into that, but it's really easy for everybody to kind of like find faults in what other people's actions or whatever they're doing is. What the hardest thing to do is to do that in yourself. So whenever you're like looking at other people, okay, they're in this level, they're in this level. What you need to immediately like trick yourself or train yourself or whatever to do. Every time you do that, you're like, okay, what's mine? What am I doing that's low level? That's not uplifting or like putting out that positive energy that would like raise other people's energy around me. What am I doing versus it's easy to look at somebody else and say, okay, they're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. It's hard to look at yourself and say, where am I fucking up? Where do I need to fix that? And that's why I think it's cool when we have like these discussions about books, because I might have a perspective listening to something or reading it that I might get certain things, but then when you or Ray go over it, I'm getting that extra perspective on things that I missed, like the first few times going through it or reading it. Yeah.
And I think you hit on something that I use quite frequently. I call it a perspective shift. No different than in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu just teaches you a whole bunch of complex movements, breaks them down into like their inconstituent parts, and then you have to drill them constantly. And then it eventually becomes muscle memory. So when I'm on top of my game, and somebody like my family's kind of notorious for this, like, oftentimes they'll get me upset originally because my mom and I think very differently. Or let's just say I see a little kid doing something. I try my best to have the perspective shift of like, that was me in the past. Or like you're saying, right, like Kaizen, like, oh, I'm working on this over here too, and it's quite similar. But often that was me in the past, and then all of a sudden I can bring empathy to that situation, and then almost like a love, and almost like a little bit of like, not jealousy, but it's like, well, it's really cool that he's being exposed to that pattern. He's got to learn through it now. And I remember what it was like, and I remember how much value it brought me on the other end of that. So I'm not going to judge that. In fact, that's a normal course of pattern for a male. So like, hell yeah. And where I used to react, and on bad days, I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, like it's making my life pretty miserable right now. But do you guys have anything similar, like jujitsu moves that you
100%. I brought Thea to a birthday party. Sarah and I brought her to a birthday party this weekend. It was to the daughter of an art client, and the most annoying kid, like loudest, getting attention. This isn't the first time I've done this comparison, but it's like, holy cow, that was me. Like, he's attention seeking. He's trying out comedy. he's annoying the hell out of the adults, but he's trying to make them laugh. Like, right. So he's trying to make them laugh. And like, that was me. And then, so I have compassion for him. And then I'm like, hopefully that was me. And that I've like matured out of that behavior. Cause then I'm I should probably be on guard that I don't actually, cause that's still me. Like, let's be honest, that is still me. So we need to create room in the world for guys like that. Little Hudson. Okay. Then, now the thing is, Wes, obviously it's easy for us to say something like, what kind of energy should you respond with if someone's breaking into your house trying to beat up your wife? Obviously you come out with the Bruce Lee energy, but again, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Like, let's think about when nobody's watching. Let's think about, and that's why I really like the road rage model, right? Because I'm not talking about if someone crashes into you, right? I'm talking about if somebody takes too much time turning left in front of you and you miss your opportunity to go through a light. You know what I mean? Or like any number of minor infractions, because like Kaizen said, on my good days, what I say is, I do that from time to time. I mean, right? Like, whereas how we usually are, it's like, we're the traffic police, except the 75% of the time where we're kind of like bending the rules, right, to get our own way. So if like after a week of a meditation retreat, I was able to week-long meditation retreat, the Hoffman process, for like the month or two after that, I was really able to automatically call up these skills where if someone does something on the road that prevents me from, that adds an extra 10 seconds to my commute, I use compassion and forgiveness, where I'm like, they must be having a rough day, give them like an understandable, humane reason as to why they're behaving that way. Right. But at some point, Wes, like you said, when it kind of bleeds into the area of like, wearing you down or affecting you, you got to put up strong boundaries.
Right.
Right. And I mean, an obvious, and again, someone coming into your house, attacking your wife, that's obvious boundaries. Like, you have to physically defend the perimeter of your home and the people in it. But like, it's the greater challenge for us is to know when to use these when it's not an obvious life or death situation.
Yeah, and I think talking through this with you guys to mirror Kaizen's, appreciation for talking through narratives of books. If I combine this thought process with the fighting stuff that I was talking about, I'm noticing that I'm reducing my threat circle. Like in the past, my threat circle was almost to where
Everybody.
my visual, to where I could see, and
Every human.
where the internet would reach.
Every man and half the women.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah. Whereas now, if I can bring this perspective, it's like, oh, what that guy's doing over there, what that little kid over there doing to seek attention and so on, he's just trying to navigate his way through the world. It has nothing to do with me. It's not threatening me by any sense of imagination. And more often, it's like another male. Like, how Matt McCusker would say that oftentimes one of his worst fears was taking off his shirt and running around the city because he just thought that every dude was like looking at me like, what a bitch, something like that.
Yeah.
So his threat circle was enlarged, and so was mine. But I think as we talk through this kind of stuff, and then also as I get more competent with using my physical body to handle a real threat, but that threat circle is way smaller. Like, yes, if somebody were deliberately breaking into my house and trying to hurt my wife, that is a very localized threat circle. But
that's what you live for. Those opportunities is what you live for.
I might hire somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Years of training will probably go massively unused.
I love these books too, Wes. And I love, I know you have a list a mile long of all the books you've studied for business psychology and everything, but not me. Like, I just kind of absorb information, audio and experientially. And like, I'm really enjoying, like, it's one thing to want to change, but when we dedicate time that we'd much prefer to be watching TV to reading shit like this proves to oneself that one is like committed to the change and doing the work. Right.
Oh yeah.
And so So first of all, again, yes to the book club, yes to this format of like identifying texts that will keep us on the path to progress. And it's not the Oprah Book Club. It's not just something to do, right? It's like these are skills. These are skills-based texts, right? Wes, Kaizen used the word judgment, and which I thought, like, not judging people, right? And I think I have the same threat radar as you do, where and it's not even, it's weird. It's like white guy driving, black guy driving, Asian man coming towards me, right? And it's like kid, like old person out of shape, like middle-aged person, pretty good shape. Like it's like all this like labeling, which is, and I'm not labeling them to see who can be my friend, right? It is really a threat-based kind of analysis, again, which keeps me in that low tier, that low level of energy.
Right.
Right. So I love what you said about like the one of the benefits of personal like bodybuilding, weight training, and more specifically fight training is that it really shrinks your circle of threat to almost nobody.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, it would basically shrink your level of threats to like real threats to other trained fighters or somebody using a weapon, but let's discount that for right now. But like to other trained fighters. And the funny thing is, trained fighters, 9,909 times out of 10,000, they're the most gentle people on earth because they don't want to fight. Like they build a respect and appreciation for the discipline, and the last thing they want to do is fight. So the funny thing is that when you shrink your threat circle, the people who you would actually have to be like worried about are the last people in the world who are actually going to want to hurt you. So everybody else in the world, if another guy is dumb enough to it, I mean, you guys probably seen it on YouTube. If you haven't, like go and check out trained MMA fighter versus street thug or something, and it's hilarious. It's not even close. It's like checkers versus chess. So yeah, Ray, I think that's I think I could do a lot of work still on that, but it's definitely the journey that I've been on, and this book for sure will help me.
Right. And so Kaizen, talk to me about like judging, labeling people, judgment, right? And like and that's probably a pretty low level of energy if you want to label that behavior or you want to score that behavior, right?
Yeah, I might have said it on here before, but I've heard it reiterated a lot, and it's one of these concepts that is put so succinctly that is the easiest way to kind of like make a shift is to stop thinking or putting yourself in a competitive frame and start shifting into a collaborative frame. And that's the same as like coming from a place of fear versus coming from a place of abundance. So if you're looking at other people and judging like how they're different or comparing yourself, that's more a competitive frame, and you're being in a place of fear at that point where you might be like looking for threats. And if you're looking for threats, then you might be missing opportunities that could be right in front of you. If you're looking more as like a collaborative frame or perspective, then instead of like comparing yourself, how can I beat this person? It's more like, how can I add? How can I add to the vibe, or how can I add to this business, or how can I add value to it, to where it's not like if you and another person are in a collaborative frame, you might be at this level. It's like the adage 1 + 1 = 11. When you're together, you're building something that's bigger than either one of you could have made individually. And that's a big shift where you're going around and you're not looking at people like as threats. You're looking at like, it's like everybody is your friend at that point. For the most part, like when you go out, the media is going to tell you one thing, the news, social media, all this is because they get people addicted to the cortisol rush and fear and all of these types of different chemicals that are going on in their brain when they're scared, and they get hooked on that. And that's why they're scrolling on their phone all day. But in reality, most people have good intentions. Most people aren't looking to fuck you over. Most people would help you out if you needed it. Like there's people, you can see all kinds of examples. Like if somebody does CPR on a stranger, or somebody helps somebody like in a flood, or there's all of these different types of examples that if you just look for that, you're going to find way more of it. And it's the same thing as like just retraining your RAS, your reticular activation system, to look more for that. And then you look more for it. And then instead of just looking for it, you just be it. And that was something I saw in an Alex Hormozy video. He was talking about that. Like, what if there was somebody that I was trying to be, what would a billionaire do?
Right.
Like, what actions would a billionaire take? What actions would they do? What type of things or activities would they do? Instead of like setting a goal, I want to do this. What are the activities or what types of things would that type of person who's already doing that goal do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Kaizen, to riff off of what you're saying, one of those things there, you're saying like very few people are actually out there to hurt you. And not even talking about physical hurt, but just like emotional hurt, or trying to like outwin you in the social game. I would say the majority of those times is actually, even if they are, it actually has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with them and more likely their past trauma. So that's why I think it's so important for all of us on this team to become as strong as men as possible, because when you're working with other men who maybe are not as skilled as you in a given domain, or a younger man, this is one of the most rewarding things ever. Like, you know, if you got a young kid asking you for help, or you see like Hudson, for instance, you know, Ray at that party, like who else better than a strong male like yourself who learned how to navigate that natural inclination to want so much attention and want to be funny and so on, that's normal. Like that's a normal thing. But maybe you, in those types of examples, can teach him, hey, here are the healthier patterns to get what you're trying to ultimately seek, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So in some sort of weird way, it's actually a huge opportunity, not necessarily a detriment.
Word. And
I'm basically saying you should adopt Hudson, is what I'm saying.
Well, his grandpa's a billionaire, so I'm on board. I'm 100% on board with that. Yeah. But his parents are divorced, so like there's a whole like, yeah, it didn't take long for me to do the math on why he's acting that way, right? And why, because of why I acted that way. You know, he wasn't like being loud and like acting up because he's like a natural born killer, or like a inherently evil piece of shit. It's because he's not getting the love he needs. Right. So, I mean, you know, I just gave him attention, and like, maybe you could say that encourages the attention-seeking behavior. But like, again, yeah, rather than like kind of like gritting my teeth every time he acted up, like I just kind of like gave him attention and played with him. And like we played, bounced the balloon back and forth and stuff. Again, because like, again, not because I'm some kind of saint. It's just because we need to make space. Him and I need to make space for people like us in the world. Yeah, well, like I think HUD. Who else is going to be able to absorb his energy and then redirect it in the right way, other than people who know that pattern? And it's a perfect example, right? Because it's like what Kaizen said: don't look at people and think threats. Look at people and think opportunity, right? So yeah, so I was able to not. There's no. I mean, I don't know what the opportunity is, but like I definitely didn't look at him and think threat to my peace of mind, threat to my relaxation, you know? Right. Yeah. So the only other thing that I'm not sure if it came up in the book or it came up in just other videos by him that I was like getting context in, was the word drama. Right. If you behave, if you think in this low levels of energy tier and you act in this low level energy tier, you're sucking yourself into drama, or you're creating drama. Right. And again, just to bring it right back to the beginning, where you're telling yourself and you're telling people that your wave is more important than the whole ocean. Right. So that again, not the home invasion, not the car wreck, but it's like, it's a much smaller, almost imperceptible kind of behavior that is useful for us to think about how to deploy this knowledge about these levels of energy. And if we can, for a quick minute, what would be an example, Ray, that comes up for you, or Kaizen that comes up for you, of what drama would consist of? Well, when I have work to do and I choose to go and yell at my neighbor, right? That's creating drama. Or when you're in the drama triangle, where there's at work or something where there's the remind me, it's the savior, the perpetrator, and the victim, right? The victim, the perpetrator, and the savior, right? Where you want to condemn someone's actions, like someone taking a parking spot, you want to come to the rescue of the person whose parking spot was taken. But then you are in the cast of the, right? Then you are like officially in the cast of the drama triangle.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Then,
can you repeat that triangle? I've never heard it before.
Oh yeah, Kaizen, you're down with this, right? We've talked about this before. There is, you might, if you're not careful, if you insert yourself into someone's drama, you will find, and I think it's the Karpman drama triangle, Karpman.
Okay.
There is a perpetrator and a victim. Sure, that's a conflict, right? But then there's the savior, right? So the savior is someone who gives their unrequested input on two people having an issue on the subway, right? Or in the grocery store, right? It's the nosy neighbor. And then all of a sudden, that person who's giving helpful advice is stuck in this, like coming to the rescue of someone and confronting the other, right?
Got it.
And as to what benefit?
So I'm going to assume it's not, that guy over there is punching that woman over there in the face on the subway.
It can even be that, Wes, to be honest. Because Kaizen, can you think about a scenario where a guy's punching a woman where you don't want to get involved, or you're better off not getting involved?
Yeah, you hear a lot of like comedians and stuff will talk about that. I think that's probably like one of the hardest things to have to deal with being like a police officer or somebody who's dealing with domestics, because if you come in as a third party, it could easily be a shift where you're the bad person in that situation for coming and intervening. And
I'm not saying let men hit women. I'm not saying abusing spouse lives matter. What I'm saying is, like, what if you punch the guy, he falls over and breaks his head, and now you're a murderer, right? And now you've got to explain to a jury of your peers why they shouldn't put you away for 25 years.
Yeah, like getting yourself sucked into that energy.
What if one of them has like AIDS or like herpes and bites your hand?
Yeah. No. So I guess the point that I was trying to make is, like, I'm going to assume at some level there would be some examples of stuff you should get involved in.
Yeah.
Like at my office, if there's conflict between employees, that I might have to try to solve that.
To HR that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the problem is we don't have. Yeah, exactly. So I don't have an HR department. I could see like the fist fighting at the subway or whatever. You can call the police, and it's like they are employed to handle that kind of conflict. Mm-hmm. But I guess I was just trying to draw the point of, there's probably some things you do have to get involved in where that triangle is almost necessary. If somebody were attacking my mother, for example, there is zero chance that I would call 911 and say, "Hey, sir, my mother's being beat up right now, and I don't want to be the savior because Ray taught me about the triangle." That sort of thing, right?
So like, and you're not wasting our time or anything. We're talking through these issues, but like, again, anger and aggression is a 160 on the 1,000-point scale, right? Mm-hmm. So that's in the low levels of energy zone. However, we can obviously think of a time where anger and aggression are necessary. 9/11, you're in the plane, you're like, all right, this is what my training's for, But but again, how you do anything is how you do everything, and it's when nobody's looking. It's when it's a kind of like, it's in the dilemma zone. Well, on the one hand, I could, but on the other hand, maybe I shouldn't. That's when this kind of scale is useful. That's when the drama triangle is useful, because it's when there's hardly anything on the line.
Exactly.
You know, that's when your integrity is required and not a hero.
Yeah, exactly. Because the example that I just brought up has never happened in my actual life. So I've been alive for 36 years. I've never actually seen it even one time. You know, but the real examples are the people at the office. Oh my gosh, you can't believe what Cindy just told me. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I'll go talk to Cindy for you right now. Like that sort of, and now you're wrapped up into all this stuff. And multiply that times the 10 other things that happened that week. And yeah, I mean, now you're sucked into those lower levels of that funnel. Definitely.
Yeah. And so that is a situation that will drag you down on the chart. Yeah, exactly.
And I have found that if you can find a way to, I don't want to say validate John who's creating the drama, but like some way of exiting that situation so he still sees you as a favorable human. Does that make sense?
Yeah, diffusing. Like it's like a form of diffusing it.
Yeah, but with him still liking you, if that makes sense. Not that you're seeking necessarily approval, but if the game is to be as friendly with people as possible. Or Kaizen, what would your comments on that be? Like, how would you exit that situation with still maintaining a positive reputation?
I mean, that's a valuable skill in itself. Immediately, it just made me think of like when you see the memes when people tell you some drama or story, and you just go, "Damn, that's crazy." Yeah. You're like, you don't put anything into it. You just like, it's like acknowledging, yeah, I'm listening to you, but I'm not going to like feed into that energy.
Or an even better word is unbelievable. Like when someone says, "Did you see that Yankee game yesterday?" And you're like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because it could be unbelievable bad. It could be unbelievable good. It's
just change the topic right after that. Just acknowledge that you heard them say something, and then
or comedians,
you're feeding energy into it by like allowing that to fester. But you could shift it up, you could shift it down, and it just depends on what that kind of shift that you do at that point is. I think that's the best. That's the only thing that I could think of without like feeding into that or allowing yourself to get sucked into that type of energy.
Yeah, because I definitely think on paper, the response would be like, "Hey, Josh, this, my friend, is drama, and I'm not getting involved." Right? Like, like that sort of thing. Like, so like, you don't want to be the kid that just like, the guy that just blows the rape whistle every time something bad happens in the office, because then nobody's going to talk to you. Like the reality is like, you need other humans to be able to play nice with you. So yeah, like using some sort of humor or using something like, "Oh, that's crazy, man." Like some way to absorb it and then deflect and get away without going into it, but then also without having that guy be like, "Yeah, dude, there's that nerd again. I'm not going to tell him anything anymore." Like that, because there is an actual detriment to that.
Right, Wes. And I think that you're talking not only about exiting with people still liking you, but like exiting with your reputation intact, kind of in a way. And so I think maybe one solution would be to treat everybody equal, right? And to not get involved in one person's drama and then ignore the other, right? Like if they know, like you look like you're good at, Wes, you look like you're good at policing your boundaries in terms of people handing you paper, right? So it's just the same as that. Yeah. Right, because you're identifying people handing you paper as something that kind of like creates a traffic jam in your priority list, right?
Yeah.
So then that's what the drama is. That's what the drama is, and so you can just use, that's crazy or it's unbelievable or what comedians do. Like Kaizen, what do comedians say when they've run out of jokes and they're on stage? They're like, it's wild out there.
There's a guy.
Shit's crazy. Shit's crazy right now.
I did coaching with this guy, and he would always say, anytime somebody would say something, he'd go, "Shut up." and it's one of those things. It's a push, but at the same time, it's like you saying something. So
and it's even better. It's better if you're like, "No."
Yeah.
And then you go back to whatever mundane task you were doing.
He would do it all the time. People would tell him something to go, "Shut up," like that.
so I mean, okay, we're well past an hour here, but I guess the lesson here is that you can also have fun exiting the drama triangle.
That probably feeds into the conversation, right? Bringing a certain amount of positive energy, maintaining higher level on that funnel. So I'm going to take it as a task today to whatever situation it is, to intentionally bring positive energy to the situation. I'll report back to you guys on Friday.
Do you hear about Josh? And you're like, is it full-blown AIDS?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he didn't fill the stapler again. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's my goal, dudes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Kaizen.
Great.
Let's keep trucking, and we'll continue the conversation on Friday.
All right, peace. Talk to you soon. Later.